This weekend marks the return of the Chinese Grand Prix, the first race there since 2019. It's round 5. The race will be 56 laps of the 5.451 kilometer Shanghai International Circuit, and it's the first time at the circuit since it hosted the 1000th round of the Formula One World Championship back in 2019. The circuit itself has 16 corners, and the last winner of the race in 2019 was Lewis Hamilton. Oh, and it's the first sprint weekend of the season, and I want to talk about why that could be a mistake in a little bit. The tyres available for this weekend are the C2, C3 and C4 tyres, but Pirelli are concerned. We've got a lot to talk about. I mentioned in the intro that the last Chinese Grand Prix was the 1000th race, but there were a few other things different as well. Max wasn't world champion. In fact, he'd only won 5 races in total at that point. He's on 57 wins now, and of course, 3 world championships, with a 4th likely this season. Sebastian Vettel? Well, he was also at Ferrari. In fact, he finished on the podium behind both Mercs that race. Sainz? He was still racing for McLaren. Gasly? He was actually at Red Bull alongside Max. And Robert Kubica partnered George Russell at Williams. Let's talk about the actual race though, and why the tyres could be an issue. First of all, Pirelli have expressed concern over the inability to conduct a track inspection to evaluate tyre options for the Grand Prix. The choices have been locked in though, so there's nothing that can be done to change that. But it is the first race since 2019, and it's the first race with these new generations of cars with the 18-inch tyres. Not only that, but in the wisdom of Formula One, China has been made the first sprint race of the season, meaning the drivers will only have 1 hour of practice before sprint qualifying, on a track they haven't raced on in 4 years, and one that has never experienced the new ground effect cars. This will either be incredible or a massive cluster. You know what. Also, I didn't know this, but the circuit's foundations are actually on swampland, meaning that there is a possibility of subtle undulations that may have developed since the last time Formula One raced at the circuit. These bumps could pose unexpected challenges, especially with the new ground effect cars, and teams will only have 1 hour to get on top of it. Alongside that, the track really doesn't get used, so it's going to be extremely green and very dirty. It will be cleaned up, but I'm expecting very little grip in the first few sessions. We could see some big surprises. It's worth noting that before this weekend, circuit organisers have been doing repairs to the circuit to smooth out any bumps that may have caused issues. The Shanghai circuit has worked very closely with Hermann Tilke's engineering company to grind down and reseal areas that were of concern. So hopefully they've gotten on top of that and the circuit will be smooth. It's not been relaid, it's just been repaired. Who's going to shine at China? Well, on paper, you'd say Mercedes have a better chance because their car operates a little bit better in the slower speed corners. And there are a few of slower speed corners at China. But with the potential of a bumpy circuit, and we don't really know what the grip level is going to be at, you have to say they might have to raise the car. I'm expecting them to have a bit of a tough time. They aren't exactly notorious in this current generation of having the sweet spot of their car dialed in really early. And that is something that's really going to be needed this weekend. It'll be no surprise to anyone that Red Bull, well, they tend to have a good base most races, and their car seems to work well at a number of different circuits. So I sadly expect them to be pretty comfortable. But Ferrari, that's kind of an unknown, really. As I say, we're going back to a circuit that we haven't raced on in a long time. It's a very different circuit to what we've had so far, so it's going to be kind of interesting to see where everyone stacks up. One team that isn't confident is McLaren. Andrea Stella said he thinks China will be damage limitation for them, the slower speed nature of the circuit, and corners not really suiting their car at all. If they can stay ahead of Ferrari and Aston, I think they'll be pretty happy. We should give a quick shout out as well to Zhou Guanyu, racing in his home race for the first time as the only Chinese driver on the grid. He needs a good race weekend, I think, being soundly beaten by Valtteri Bottas so far. Audi are going to be looking at possible drivers for next year and 2026 for their takeover. And right now, I don't think he's on the list. A few good races, though, and he could probably swing that round. Ultimately, with this being a sprint weekend, there could be any number of surprises. And with the nature of the circuit, and really most teams heading into the unknown, there are a few opportunities here for some of the midfield teams to move up, and potentially for some of the top teams to make mistakes. I'm looking forward to this one. I'll see you there.